Hey everyone, I'm RRabbits, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Jasastur. Jasastur used to live only in the dimension of dreams, tormenting monsters in their sleep until one day, a nightmare Baba Yaga was having felt so real that Jasastur trespassed dimensions. Now he can become your deepest fear even if you're awake. And so here you have what is the last monster from the Eldritch Abomination maze, and in my opinion, out of all the monsters in the maze, this is by far the best and the one with the coolest design. And as of the time recording this video, there's a total of 38 Dark Legendary monsters, and so I'm going to be comparing Jasastur's skills and stats to the remaining monsters. And so we start off with a power of 3245, which actually puts this monster in 27th place, not a particularly high power. However, his life is 31,366, which is on the rather tanky side. This actually puts him in 5th place, and the stat itself is the 4th highest for Dark Legendary monsters. So he can't really pack a punch, but he can take a lot of punches. And lastly, and most importantly, his speed is 3,531, thus making him the second fastest Dark Legendary monster in the entire game. And he's actually second tied with Krampus, and I'm pretty sure all of you know Krampus. He's the dark monster who's insanely fast with an AoE free skill. But seriously, just so everyone knows how fast this monster and Krampus are, in the entire game, of all the legendary monsters, having a speed of 3531, this makes you the 9th fastest monster. That's of all legendary monsters. But it gets even better, because of all those monsters that are actually faster than Krampus and Jasastur, none of them have an AoE deny skill. None of them can do something like what they can do. Sure, there are some that have a single stun, but they can only immobilize one target. Jasastur and Krampus, they can immobilize the whole enemy team. And so with that introduction, you can tell he's quite amazing. He may not be able to pack a punch like I mentioned, but he certainly has a nice tanky life and an incredible speed. And as for his trait, he has the newest and latest trait, Abomination. He's immunity to possession, nightmares, and bleed, thus making him one of the first monsters to be immune to bleed. And given the fact that he has immunity to possession, this definitely helps him out against dark monsters and against magic monsters specifically. And if you ever find yourself facing off against a Baba Yaga in some sort of war, well, she can't do anything to you. I mean, she can still blind you, but at least she can't possess you. And one thing you're going to see about this monster is that his skills are just absolutely phenomenal. Like, I have no idea what they were thinking when they made this monster, but it is what it is. Social Point made him, and now we all have to deal with him. For his ultimate attack, we have Star Stalker, deals very heavy dark damage to all enemies, may make all targets bleed, may stun all targets. So this skill is an AoE that deals 65 dark base damage. That doesn't matter too much considering you're not going to be running any strength runes, you're going to be running all speed runes, so the damage output won't be that high. But it is an AoE bleed, which is awesome. No one in the game besides monsters with Abomination are immune to bleeding, and currently the only monsters that have Abomination are dark monsters and one epic monster that's dark and magic. So most of the time you're definitely going to be landing that bleeding. But on top of that, it also immobilizes. That's right, his ultimate attack is also an AoE immobilizer. It stuns the enemy. So the cool thing about this is that the monster isn't immune to stun. Not only are you going to stun, deal some initial damage, and you also apply bleeding, which means that initial turn they're stunned and they bleed, they lose 10% of their life. On the following turn when they finally get a turn in, that's another 10%. So you're guaranteed to take out 20% of their life just with the ultimate attack, not including initial damage. For this monster, this ultimate attack is just amazing. In Skills Group 1, he has nothing worth mentioning, so on to Skills Group 2 we go. And so we start things off with Teeth Tickle. Deals heavy special damage, removes 50% of stamina from target, requires cooldown. So this skill deals 55 special base damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 31 stamina with a low 1 turn cooldown. A 50% stamina drain is amazing. You never know when this can come in handy. You never know when this can win you the game. Say the enemy attacker is going to attack you next turn. Nope, 50% stamina drain. You're out of stamina to attack me. You're going to have to recharge. Or the denier is going to do a deny skill next turn. Nope, drain your stamina. Yeah, it's not 100%, it can only drain at max 70% if they have no stamina runes or they don't have the attune trait, but still, you never know that just draining that 50% is going to help you out. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is one of the skills you may want to consider running. There's like 3 must-have skills for this monster, and then there's 2 you have to decide between, of which this is one of them. The next skill we have is Thousand Forms, deals heavy dark damage, may possess target for 2 turns, requires cooldown. This skill deals 50 damage, it's dark based, costs 28 stamina with a 2 turn cooldown, and it possesses the enemy monster for 2 turns. Now, even though this skill does deal damage, that doesn't matter too much considering what you're after is that 2 turn possession. You basically get an enemy monster on your side for 2 full turns. That is crazy good. And this is definitely a must-have skill. And next up in Skills Group 2, what is definitely one of his most popular skills, Faceless Being. Deals moderate special damage to all enemies, gives nightmares, and may possess all targets, requires cooldown. This skill deals 35 special base damage to all of the enemy monsters, costs 35 stamina with a 3 turn cooldown. It's an AoE possession and an AoE nightmares. What the heck, if it was AoE possession, that'd be more than enough. They decided, let's add nightmares to make it slightly more powerful. Because the cool thing about this is that nightmares will drain 10% of their stamina, that's 14 stamina on legendary monsters, and it cuts away 5% of their HP for the next 3 turns. And so let's break it down. Not only do you get to possess the enemy monster, which means they're going to use their own stamina to attack themselves, their own teammates, you also apply nightmares, which means they're going to lose 5% of their HP and lose 10 extra stamina, right? So they use stamina to attack themselves and they lose 10% of their stamina. But wait, there's more. Let's get into skills group 3. The Crawling Chaos removes 50% of stamina from all targets, applies Stamina Leak to all targets, gives 50% of stamina to all allies. What the heck is this skill? Not only do you drain 50% of stamina and Stamina Leak, you also give your team stamina, which means your team doesn't ever have to worry about recharging. The combo is so obvious. AoE Possession, Nightmares, followed by Crawling Chaos. They're not going to have any more stamina to attack you. So on that first turn they're possessed and they attack themselves, they're immobilized, they lost 10% of their stamina. And so most skills cost 28 stamina or above. If it's an AoE, it's probably 30 or above. Faceless Being, for example, is 35 stamina. Crawling Chaos doesn't indicate how much stamina it costs, but I'm assuming it's not going to be 0. If this was 0, it would be way overpowered. It's probably going to be 30 or above. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, if Jasastur starts the game off with AoE Possession and Nightmares, on the next turn does Crawling Chaos, they lose 50% of their stamina, so that's 70 points, they lost 14 with Nightmares, that's 84, and then 15% of Stamina Leak, which I believe is 21, that's 105 stamina they lost just from your effects. And considering they used at least 28 stamina to attack you, that's like 133 minimum stamina they used. And so you've completely immobilized all of the enemy monsters. They used the first turn to attack themselves, and on the next turn, you took all of their stamina away so they can't do anything. At the same time, you gave all of your monsters stamina. This is seriously one of the most powerful things in the whole entire game. And so all I can say is I really hope this is an AoE. I hope it's updated in the future, because if this only targets a single enemy and only does Stamina Leak and drains stamina for one monster, it's still a good skill. It just wouldn't be as powerful. And so it goes without saying, this is another must-have skill. In fact, those were the 3 must-have skills in my opinion. Crawling Chaos, Faceless Being, and Thousand Forms. But for the sake of completing the analysis, let's talk about the next skill, Elm Avenue. Deals very heavy special damage, may give nightmares to target, requires cooldown. What the heck, for some reason this Deny monster has a really powerful attack. It deals 65 special base damage, costs 31 stamina with a 1 turn cooldown, and applies nightmares. There's absolutely no reason to run this skill, even if you wanted to make this monster an attacker, which arguably you can. Don't recommend it. You can do whatever you want in the game, right? But definitely do not recommend it. Use this monster as a denier, that is what he is built for. He has the speed, he doesn't have the power. No reason to run this skill, I don't even know why they included it. And so moving on to the other skill, Knight of the Tentacle, which is the skill you may want to consider running for your final skill. Deals moderate dark damage to all enemies, gives dark immunity to all allies, gives immunity to possession and nightmares to all allies, requires cooldown. This skill targets a single enemy, but your whole team gets immunity to dark attacks, nightmare, and possession. And this includes all sorts of possession, including glitches, corruption, and hacksters hacking. So this skill deals 45 dark base damage to a single enemy monster, costs 41 stamina, 3 turn cooldown. So is the skill worth running? That is really hard to decide. I was thinking about this a lot, and my personal conclusion is I'm not sure if it's worth using. Most of the time I don't see when this skill would be beneficial, because it's really nice that you can give yourself possession, especially considering so many dark monsters are actually immune to possession. So you won't be able to pull off your little Faceless Being combo. I'm sorry, you just won't. They're not going to be immobilized, they're still going to have a chance to immobilize you. In which case you may be thinking, instead of starting the game off with Faceless Being, you can just use Knight of the Tentacle. But you have to think about this, you may be able to protect your team from being possessed, but that doesn't stop the enemy from attacking you. For example, if it's a 3 against 3 battle, you go first, use Knight of the Tentacle, the enemy Deny monster does an AoE possession and you don't get possessed, well you better hope your attacker can take out the enemy attacker or immobilize the enemy attacker, otherwise you're going to take some hits. On the flip side, let's say the enemy has a monster that's immune to possession for their main Deny monster, well then you would just start the game off with Faceless Being, possess 2 out of 3 of the enemy monsters, the enemy Deny monster can do its AoE possession, and so what? The cool thing about being a human player is, we're smart. When we're possessed, we're not going to attack our teammates, we're just simply going to recharge. Or if we have a self skill, we'll use the self skill. If we have an extra turn skill, we'll use the extra turn skill. Being possessed isn't really that much of a threat for a human player. So anyhow, what actually happens? You manage to possess 2 of the enemy monsters, they possessed you simply recharge or do whatever you have to do, the enemy monsters attack themselves, and it goes back to you, and you finish off with Crawling Chaos, and then once again they'll be out of stamina. So I don't really see getting possessed as that much of a huge threat. If you ever find yourself facing off against a hackster, well guess what, it doesn't matter. Sure, you can use Knight of the Tentacle to protect against hacking, but you could also just do Faceless Being. Hackster doesn't have a good trait, he can easily be possessed, and he's also inherently slower than this monster, so you're safe there. If you're going up against a glitch, well, he can only corrupt one monster, so even if you get corrupted, like I said, you have self skills, you have extra turn skills, you can recharge, not really a big threat. When you can possess 2 out of 3 of the enemy monsters, that's better. So personally, I don't really find that much of a use for this skill. The immunity to dark attacks is nice, but most of the time I find that the dark monsters you face, they tend to be the deniers because they're really fast and they have great deny skills. Yeah, sure, it can be useful against the strong dark attackers, but most of the time those dark attackers also have special base skills and you never know what they're going to use. You can give yourself immunity to possession, nightmares, and dark attacks, and then suddenly they hit you with a strong 65 special base attack. Or Barbatos gives himself double damage, does hellfire against you, and you're as good as dead, like maybe he doesn't do Master of Pain. So there's pros and cons to this skill. It's really up to you whether or not you want to run this skill. And furthermore, in a situation where you face off against a Razorface or a Mommy, they have AoE stun skills, they're immune to possession, you could just start the game off with Crawling Chaos. You drain 50% of their stamina, you give them stamina leak, you give your monster stamina, they go and they AoE stun you, and so now all of your monsters are immobilized, while that Mommy on the next turn, she's not going to have enough stamina, so she's going to have to recharge. So then you're all immobilized, the enemy attacker, he's going to land a hit on you, so is the third monster, but after that, they're all going to be immobilized because they're going to have no stamina, in which case you can make a comeback. And so the point of that narrative is to illustrate Knight of the Tentacle, yeah, it protects you against possession, but there's also monsters that can stun you and stuff, so it's not necessarily the most safest skill. And so those are my main counter arguments to Knight of the Tentacle. Personally, I think I would run Teethsicle as opposed to Knight of the Tentacle. At the end of the day though, it's up to you. Crawling Chaos, Faceless Being, Thousand Forms in my opinion are must-have skills, and then you can ultimately decide between Teethsicle and Knight of the Tentacle. And as for runes, like I've been mentioning over and over, you want to go 3 speed runes, considering how fast this monster is. I mean, come on, he has the 9th fastest speed stat in the whole entire game. You definitely want to capitalize on that speed and these deny skills. And so with all that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis on Jasastur, who is by far one of the most amazing monsters. Finally someone to combat against Krampus. Now I want to hear from all of you guys, who do you think is better, Jasastur or Krampus, and why? Krampus for a long time now has been known as the best dark deny monster. Well, do you think this monster changes things? Let me know in the comments below. With that being said, I'm RRabbits, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.